I know you're a big hockey fan.
I love hockey, yes.
Blackhawks or Bruins?
Blackhawks.
All right, there it
Blackhawks.
is. I'm a Chicago guy myself, so also pulling for the Hawks.
Well, I help Motorola, and Motorola has a lot of people in Chicago.
Absolutely.
I have to say Blackhawks.
Absolutely. I was going to say, I knew you're flying out there quite a bit these days, and so it's a little bit of a forced question. One of the things that we've been talking about with some other folks here today, Reed Hoffman and Ben Kaznoka, for example, education. And you're a big think guy in the Valley, really looking at the forefront of a lot of change. What's your perspective on the changing notion of education right now?
Actually, I'm kind of old school. I think the key is the quality of the teacher. And, I understand online tutoring and all that. I mean, it's like wonderful stuff, right? But at some level, it is the student and the teacher. And in my past, I had 2 or 3 just formative teachers in my life that literally changed me, that put me on a different path. And one English teacher in particular, I would not be a writer if it was not for him. And he is no longer living, but it's not clear to me that he would have anticipated my writing career, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
In other words, I sucked as a student. So yeah, a terrific influence in my life. So I hope we continue to also have this analog component. And I've seen platforms where, it's like one-on-one tutoring, live video, no matter where the tutor is, which is very interesting. So it is about, I think, a one-on-one relationship. There are other bigger thinkers that are talking about, technology and all this kind of stuff, but I'm more of a block and tackling kind of thing for this.
I think that's great. We're sort of identifying maybe some of the things that technology can't ever replicate, which is the human interaction, the one-on-one that's essential to how anyone moves their life forward.
Yes.
Like you can connect with people through social networks, but you can't really have deep personal relationships without getting face-to-face.
Yeah. And you also, I don't think, it'd be hard to imagine a scenario where, everybody, especially for millennials, every millennial has to have a trophy, has to win every competition, has to have a lot of positive feedback. But the teachers and the coaches that formed me, and I would throw Steve Jobs into that, a lot of it was motivated by fear. I mean, really, like fear of embarrassment, fear of failure, fear of harassment, fear of whatever. And looking back, this is a very, very useful thing to be afraid sometimes.
Absolutely.
And so I don't know if you can go to YouTube and watch a video about calculus and like feel the fear of getting humiliated in calculus class.
Yeah.
So.
Well, frankly, that's one thing that traditional education does really well. That
scare people.
it gives you it gives you regular forced check-ins that evaluate you in a potentially certainly a somewhat public way. That are you doing well? Are you doing poorly? And you get evaluated by someone who's an expert, ideally. And that is something that the self-directed learner doesn't necessarily have.
Yes.
And so the motivation to keep yourself moving along the path, it's great to have, but let's face it, like I like to sit on the couch and eat potato chips too.
Right. At an extreme, you hear about these online courses for driver's ed, right?
Yeah.
Boy, I mean, think about that. So
I don't think you can learn how to drive online.
Well, I don't even mean those. I mean the ones where you get a ticket and you're trying to remove the points.
Sure.
And, so you can watch that online. You think those people are like paying rapt attention to that online course to remove the points from their license?
I don't want to make assumptions about how people engage with other online platforms, but I do know how they engage with creativeLIVE.
Okay. They're taking notes right now.
Actually, yes. So that's the behavior that we regularly see, is that there are people across the internet who are taking actually some pretty detailed notes, starting to kind of publish those for one another, and that's really interesting. We're getting to this. We're seeing collaborative note taking. We're seeing people getting together in small groups all across the country to learn together, which I think is pretty cool. So they're sort of substituting creativeLIVE for a formal education situation, and then creating communities of learners together in local environments that I think is pretty neat.
So this is Note Up?
Yes, yeah, a note up. Yeah, a learn up, if you will.
Okay.
You know, you're really transparent about how you do things, about how you gave us a bunch of productivity tips on there. To a certain extent, like the stuff that you post on HubSpot is a form of education. And do you consider yourself an educator?
No.
No.
You know, I suppose that by reading some of my stuff, you gain some insights and education. But in even my most haughty moments, I don't consider myself an educator. Like that HubSpot thing where I explained everything I do in social media. One perspective on that is, you know, look at Guy, he's explaining how he does things so that everybody can do things better. There are other explanations for that. One other explanation is so many people ask me, I thought I would just write it all down and then I can just tell people, just go over there, don't bother me anymore, just go read that, right?
Sure.
It's expediency. Another is that I have found, you know, prior to me doing something like that, many people would say, you know, Guy is not being transparent, you know, he has these contributors and these ghosts and, you know, it's not really him. So people were just ripping on me. But now when you publish something like that, you know, no one can accuse you of not being transparent anymore.
Right.
When you've documented everything you did. So when somebody now says, Guy, you know, you hide the fact that you have ghosts, I say, well, you know, June 1st, 2013, there it was. You know, I can't help it if you can't use a search engine. You're an idiot. What do you want from my life? So it's not all wonderfulness.
Gotcha. Well, again, like your value of transparency, like giving that up, I think is great. But I actually do, and this is me personally, consider you an educator. Like, you know, APE is an example of you understanding a modern publishing paradigm.
Yeah.
And telling people how to do it. So I recently got an MBA. I went part-time. I worked really hard. I value that education incredibly highly. It was an awesome experience. But I didn't learn how to run a social media campaign. I didn't learn.
They should teach that now.
Absolutely. But you are teaching that.
But not in the. I am as a byproduct of what I do. But I can't tell you I'm so noble as the. You know, I'm trying to teach people social media. Now, when I wrote What the Plus, I really wanted people to learn how to use Google+. APE, author, publisher, entrepreneur, I wanted people to learn how to do self-publishing. So I guess, yes, there's an educational component. Any nonfiction author who is sincere has to have an element of education to what he or she is doing. Otherwise, you're just pimping yourself, right? And I hope that
and we've all heard that pimping ain't easy.
Yeah, well, so at the end of my life, you know, when God asked me, what did you do? I want to say that I empowered people, and I empowered people with my presentations, my writing, my creativeLIVE experiences, you know, so that's the scorecard, the scoreboard that I have chosen to be measured upon.
And I think that's an amazing scorecard. Like, how many lives did you touch and change through your work, you know, on behalf of others?
Okay.
Well,
thank you.
Well, so what do you think about creativeLIVE? That's essentially our mission, is to change the world one life at a time by connecting people, creative entrepreneurs, with experts in given fields that they're interested in. Like, how did you like being on the main stage?
Well, I love it because I speak maybe 75 times a year. So let's assume that 75 times a year, on average, 1,000. So 75,000 people have seen me give that speech in any given year. I might have just doubled that number today, right? And so lots of people, in those 75 times, usually I'm part of a conference where they had to fly to Orlando or fly to Bogota or fly to someplace and see me and pay $1,000 and hotel and, you know, all that. Not that I was the reason or the only reason they came, or not that I was the only thing there. I was part of a whole thing. But so today, you know, maybe 75,000 people can see me by turning on their computer.
Yeah.
That is a good thing. I mean,
and
hard to argue against that.
Hard to argue against that. And the fact that students, you know, learners of any age from Nebraska to Nairobi can ask a question to you directly through creativeLIVE. I think that's an amazing paradigm shift. It's
It's noble in a sense. It's a very good thing. I think information wants to be free. And I don't mean free in, well, free can be taken in two ways, and I mean it both ways. Free meaning not paid for,
Yes.
and free meaning everywhere.
Open access.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think we completely agree with you there, and that's why all of our classes are free to as many people as want to tune in, and that we try. Our one of our values is access to to folks like yourself, that they don't have to travel to Bogota or to Silicon Valley. That's awesome.
Traveling to Bogota is pretty good.
Yeah?
it's a lovely place.
Where's your favorite place that you've gone this year? After creativeLIVE, of course.
After creativeLIVE, after South San Francisco.
Yeah.
I haven't gone to Istanbul this year, so it probably would be Bogota. Bogota had this restaurant called Andres de something. I don't know. And have you ever been to Bucks of Woodside?
I have not.
Okay, so Bucks of Woodside, if you go there, it's like just total tchotchke heaven, and just like all kinds of memorabilia. It's like if you took a Ralph Lauren store and jammed it full of LSD and steroids, it would be...
Tell me more.
Bucks. Yeah. So if you took Bucks and multiplied it by 10 and jammed it full of LSD and steroids, you would have this Andres restaurant.
In South America.
In South America. It is truly an experience. I've never seen any place like it.
You've literally described a trip in the counterculture.
Not that I've ever taken LSD, or steroids, but I imagine that's what it would be like.
Right, your conceptual idea of that.
Yeah, like Bill Clinton, yeah.
Fantastic, cool. Well, Guy Kawasaki, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us on the Backstage. We'll say go Blackhawks,
Go
and
Blackhawks.
thanks again.